Hello, beautiful people, and welcome, hi, to the first, wait, let me get some more natural light in here. Yeah, there we go. To the first Ask Zajef, just like general Ask Zajef in almost 2 months. It's been a while. As such, you guys might have a lot of questions on a bunch of recent stuff, so let's get right into it. Does Nahida enable a Melt Ayaka playstyle, or is it still missing a good pyro sub DPS? The problem with Melt Ayaka has never been the lack of a pyro unit. It's just the fact that Ayaka just doesn't gain that much from Melt. Ayaka has standard ICD with pretty fast hits, meaning that about a third of her hits get melted if you play her in Melt. Which is like, not a lot. She can gain stuff from Melt. It's just actually not that much. And so, because whenever you're against freezable enemies, they're also most often enemies that will get knocked back by your burst, which means that you need freeze for your burst to actually do its damage. Because of that, you're kind of in a situation where you can play Melt where when enemies aren't freezable, but when enemies are freezable, Melt is just griefing. You can use Nahida in Ayaka Melt teams. You're still gonna need a decent amount of off-field pyro if you want to melt all the meltable hits on your burst. But honestly, there's not that much of a point, and you generally just be better off not focusing too much on trying to melt your hits and just playing her with like Bennett, Kazuha, Rosaria or some shit. So you can still get the battery, you still get the massive attack buff from Bennett, you still get the VV from Kazuha and stuff like that. Is it doable with Nahida? Yes. Is it something that I would generally recommend? Not really. Honestly, if anything, I think I'd rather use Jean over Nahida, because Jean's like Sunfire can apply 2 units of pyro, which can actually be enough if you do your setup correctly to reverse melt all of the meltable hits on Ayaka's burst, but you don't lose VV and you can still use Bennett and a cryo battery. And by the way, just to make this very clear, right? You gain more damage from Bennett than you would from melting generally on Ayaka. You seem to recommend Favonius other ER weapons or 3 times element teams a lot. Is Genshin's energy / ER design okay? No, it's good. If like energy was just not a thing and you just had all of your things, there wouldn't be a reason to put units of the same element together, right? Other than like the resonances, which don't do that much. And honestly are pretty boring from a design perspective. Just resonance is just, okay, it's a passive little buff that you get, who cares? From a design perspective, right? And so it would make units feel a lot more like one-dimensional in what they can achieve, and it would give them a lot less depth. The fact that you need to battery certain characters, and that certain characters generate a lot of particles, stuff like that, it adds like a new dimension to your character design that just gives you a lot more flexibility in the kind of things that you want to do. You can make a character have really bad particle generation and really high energy requirements, and in exchange you give them bigger numbers, or you give them better elemental application, or stuff like that, right? And you can effectively diversify your design a lot because of that. But obviously what that's gonna mean is that once you start getting into the like danker shit, right? You start getting into teams that have 4 different elements, stuff like that, often you're gonna struggle for particles. And that can be fixed with fab weapons, and you're sacrificing some damage for it, and I think it's a very, very nice design. I think it would be really if the Favonius weapons were inaccessible. If the Favonius weapons were 5 stars, as much as like they'd be so much more broken because they'd have 5-star stats, it would make them a lot less accessible to most players, and it wouldn't be like a thing that you can design the base game around, right? When you design a character, you have to design them like across multiple levels. You have to design them for like new account, you have to design them for your average free-to-play account, you have to design them for your dolphin account, and you have to design them for your whale account. The thing is, most of the community is free-to-play, and so if you make your base game at free-to-play level feel unplayable unless you spend money, they're just gonna quit. And that's not something that you want as a company. You want them to be slightly annoyed, but you don't want them to quit, because slightly annoyed means that they might try to fix their problems by spending, but quit means they're never gonna spend more money on your game. If the Favonius weapons were not available to most players, then there's just so many characters that would basically feel unplayable. You look at a character like Ito, and Ito teams, you want to use Zhongli on Favonius, you want to use Goro on Favonius. If you lose those 6 clear particles per rotation, Ito's ER requirements jump up a pretty significant amount, to the point where it can actually be just difficult to get enough energy on him at all. You might have to go ER Sans, and that makes it feel like he's shit. And like, if you don't have his constellation that gives energy, I think it's a C2, then he's a bad unit that's unplayable. And again, right, they want you mildly annoyed not feeling like something is unplayable. Favonius weapons basically give them a lot more room for design for units at like free-to-play level investment, while also giving them the option to have constellations that fix that reliance on the fab weapons, so that you can put your fab characters on a better weapon. It's good for them in like how they're trying to get you to whale, while still being good for free-to-play players, which is the sweet spot that they're aiming for. Is there any team where Gene's C2 actually matters? Any Dragon Strike team. True and real. What do I think about the discussion of Cyno Quickbloom and it being his real team? I mean, yes, when you put an Electro unit in a Hyperbloom, they generally become better. And because Cyno's not that great to begin with, it sure is gonna help. But when you look at the options, like the other Electro units you could be putting in there instead of him, you'll realize that, yeah, you know what, maybe it's not so good. It's not bad, it's fine, right? Like, it's a good team at the end of the day. Cyno's a good unit. He's just a very replaceable one. Elemental tier list? Sure. You know what? Sure. There you go. There's your tier list. Yeah, I talked about it on the KQM podcast, but at the end of the day, right, you're not evaluating elements based on what they do by themselves, you're evaluating elements based on reactions, so you can spend a lot of time arguing about, like, let's say you're considering Hyperbloom. Well, is it more Hydro that's doing the thing? Is it more Dendro? Is it more Electro? It's kind of a waste of time, though. Like, as a general rule, if a unit is Hydro or Animo, unless their kit is just complete garbage, they're probably good. If a unit is Dendro or Electro, they're probably decent. Cryo and Pyro, it's very, very hit or miss. That being said, though, I want to make it very clear. I'm seeing some comments in chat about like Geo being bad, meaning that like it's bad design. I don't think so. Having an element that isn't meant to react with other elements is fine. At the end of the day, sometimes less is more. You get characters that revolve around reactions all the time. So getting characters that don't every once in a while is different. They can be balanced in different ways, and I think that's neat. I think it's healthy for the game to have that. The only issue that I have with Geo is that if you have Geo, there's no need to make physical units. And if you have physical, there's no need to make Geo units. So it's a little bit repetitive in that sense, but that's kind of my only gripe with Geo. Is my most fun Dendrotease video still up to date? That's a very good question. Okay, I don't know if Kissing Aggravates makes my top 5 anymore. It might still, it's close to it, but towards the bottom, so maybe it would get knocked out. It's nice to play it once in a while, but I don't want to play it all the time, basically. TF Kazuha, yep, still up there for sure. Sugo Salad is still up there as well, for sure. Thundering Furry, definitely still up there as well. Why is this most replayed? Like this part right here, what do I say? That's why. It's a really fun game. I see. Hyperbloom variations. Baseline Hyperbloom, honestly, not anymore. As much as I have fun with like double Hydro Hyperbloom, the fun is more coming from the fact that the enemies are dying fast rather than the team itself. I wonder if Oven is up there now. I don't know. The thing about Oven is like when it works, it feels so good. But when it doesn't work, it feels kind of mid. And I feel like it would be a lot more fun if I had Ganyu actually. Because Kaya's burst just doesn't last long enough. Just like Elegy 300 ER Ganyu. Does she run Emblem or Deepwood? You probably run Emblem because you can have Nahida on Deepwood. Hyperfridge is really fun, that's for sure. I think Bitsing Aggravate out, TF Kazuha in, Suga's Hyperbloom in, Thundering Fury in, and just baseline Hyperbloom out. And instead of those, probably Oven and Hyperfridge. Like at the end of the day, Hyperfridge doesn't get you that many more seeds, but what it does do is it freezes enemies. And as it turns out, freeze is kind of good. Explain how much ER Electro Resonance realistically replaced? Sure. As usual. Effectively, right, let's say at a baseline you're playing Cookie Beto, which is a thing that you might play in a like double Electro Hyperbloom team. Cookie before C4 generates 4.5 particles average. Beto's maybe catching one of those. Then Beto, let's say one perfect parry, one non-parry, 6 particles. Let's say you're playing that with Ayato Nahida, or Ayato DMC is probably generally what you'd do. So Ayato, if you play with TF, you can do 3 E's per rotation. Maybe something like this. Let's start with no fav. Here, your Beto's energy cost would be 80, and so her ER requirements would be around 185. With Electro Resonance, right, you're catching maybe one more particle on her and another 3-ish maybe even 4 because you probably have a slightly long rotation, but let's say 3 for now. And in a situation like this, Electro Resonance would be saving you about 30% ER on your beta. However, sometimes it's going to be less. So you look at, for example, if instead of Cookie, you're playing Nahida, like as your Hyperloom trigger. So instead of the total 4.5, you're getting a total more like 10, because your rotation is about 20 seconds, right? And in this case, instead of being 30, it's more like 20. Effectively, the higher your ER requirements are, the less particles you generate, then the more value you're getting out of Electro Resonance, right? Because you're always gaining from that Electro Resonance, you're always gaining about 4 electro particles per rotation. If you're generating 1 energy, like one electro particles without it, and you gain another 4, now that's 5 times more energy that you're generating. So you need 5 times less ER. If you were to go 2 to get 2 before the resonance, then you'd go from 2 to 6, that's 3 times more energy, so you'd need 3 times less ER. So basically, the more energy you're generating at a baseline, the less value you're getting from the Electro Resonance. Even in something like that, it's still getting you about 20% ER, which is still very reasonable. But yeah, put this back to Cookie. This is very hard to reach without ER Sands. This is reachable without ER Sands. So it effectively very often is gonna let you just get so much value. Have I covered the DEHYA co-op calculation someone made on DEHYA mains? No. What's the cope flavor for the day? Why co-op? I don't know, man. It seems very interesting. Chat, what if DEHYA is designed to work with a unit that cannot be shielded and needs pyro application? That deals double the damage when they're not shielded and needs pyro application because like they're a melt carry or some shit. God. If an account can only have 1 5-star weapon of each type, what would I recommend? That's a good question. I mean, it obviously is going to depend a lot on what units you play, right? For swords, either Mistsplitter or Light. Probably Mistsplitter, because you can use it on Bennett as well if you don't use a sword carry, but Light is fine too. Claymores, Redhorn. For polearms, I actually don't know for polearms. Either Scarlet Sands or Homa, probably. Probably Homa. They're both very similar, so you can kind of go for either. For catalysts, TDDS. Unironically, you might not like this answer, but I think that the only catalyst that's actually worth considering is Moonglow. Because why would you go for any of the other 5-star catalysts when you could go for Witsith instead? Like, if you are gonna be wailing for a catalyst, you can probably 1-rotate enemies, in which case Witsith is better than your 5-star anyways, let's be honest. And the support ones are worse than, like, this is worse than Sac Frog or TDDS or Fav. Like, so like, realistically... No, but like, in all honesty, jokes aside, probably Kagura's, but I don't think that any of the 5-star catalysts actually matters. And then for bows, Elegy. Can we use DEHYAs as a measurement of power the same degree we're using Xiao's as a measurement of height? We could, unironically. Alright, I think we're gonna end it here for the Zajef though. Yeah, so thank you for watching. If you have any more questions, keep an eye out for the community posts. See you guys around. Bye, YouTube. Let's get a tall character and Animal Resonance. Now I should be able to do this. Yeah. Can Xiao do it? Oh!